to the Power of One. Today, I will be speaking with Inspector Thomas from the Northwest section of Philadelphia. This will be a very important conversation because crime has actually changed in the Northwest section of Philadelphia. Born, raised, and still residing in West Oak Lane, I see that crime has changed. It is alarming. And you could just be walking down the street and caught in the crossfire. So please join me in welcoming Inspector Thomas. Welcome to the show. Tell me, what is your role as the inspector in the Northwest section of Philadelphia?
So my role as the inspector is to manage, oversee, and coordinate the operations of 4 districts. Those districts are the 5th, the 14th, the 35th, and the 39th. It's not a job that I particularly take on by myself. I have a number of commanders and supervisors who work under me. For instance, I have 4 districts. Each district has a captain. Those captains have lieutenants and sergeants who also carry out the day-to-day operations of their respective patrol districts. But ultimately, they all work for me, and they're all my responsibility.
Okay. Now, how do you personally interact with all 4 police districts?
So I'm a hands-on inspector. And when I say that, what I mean is I just don't sit behind a desk in the office all day. You know, I like to go to roll calls at times. I also like to interact with my officers in the community in real time, meaning that, you know, you may sometimes see me on the street. You may sometimes even see me on a bike. I'm one of a handful of commanders in the police department who is bike trained, and I have an opportunity to ride from time to time. And so with those interactions, you know, I think that it's important, for one, for people to see me, you know what I mean? Because leadership is about being seen, you know, when leading a division, you know, I just want to make sure that my people in the community know that we're all in this together, you know. So I just make it a point to just to be on the scene and to be active.
Which I think is important. And the same thing for me. I'm not desk bound. I think being in the community makes a huge, huge difference. So of the 4 police districts, we have the 5th, 14th, 35th, and 39th. Which one of those has the highest percentage of gun violence?
So the 35th district year to date has the highest amount of gun violence. I think we're up about, we're at 44 shooting victims year to date for the 35th, and then about 8 homicides. That's definitely higher versus the same time last year, and even higher from the year before. Because as you know, the violent crime in Philadelphia has been trending upwards.
What district has the least percentage of gun violence? And then tell me, what's the difference between that police district, those neighborhoods, and the one with the highest?
So we just discussed the 35th, which is the highest. And then we have the 5th police district, which is up in the Roxborough area. They have the lowest amount of gun crime for the Northwest division. And just to put some numbers out there, I believe the 5th district has had 1 shooting, and they don't have any homicides this year. And so primarily, the main thing that makes these communities different, it has to deal with the socioeconomic structure of things. You know, when you consider impoverished areas, you know, I think the Pew Trust did a study on Philadelphia as far as poverty is concerned. And when you look at these 2 areas, you know, you have Roxborough, which is kind of up here, and then you have, you know, some of my other areas, the 14th, the 39th and 35th, who are closer to the, you know, lower as far as, you know, I guess you could say being on the southern point from the 5th district, the poverty levels increased dramatically. So you have Roxborough, which has a poverty rate of around, like, I think 15% or so of the people that live in Roxborough are under the national poverty rate. But as you move towards North Philadelphia, as you move towards certain areas of the 35th, 39th, and 14th, you see that to increase up into about 45% of in some of these areas where you see people living under the poverty level. So the main difference is that, that poverty, it has connections to crime. There's been numerous studies that have connected, areas, that are in need to an increase in criminal activity and other things. So that's the primary difference.
With all the shootings that are taking place, and I know the 35th you said is the highest, but the 35th, 14th, and 39th, they see we'll say the 39th and the 14th, they see their fair share of shootings as well. With all of these shootings that are taking place in the northwest section of Philadelphia, are they all gang related?
So no, they are not all gang related. There are numerous reasons why these shootings occur. Sometimes it's as simple as an argument. Arguments over money, arguments over family issues. We've seen numerous shootings because of those issues. Another thing that we're seeing a dramatic increase in, and it's probably due to the fact that we're still kind of in COVID mode, is the domestic related shootings. I heard a stat, I think maybe like last week nationally, that domestic related shootings are up about 40%, nationally. And so, we're not exempt from that. We're also experiencing these domestic related shootings. Then you have your narcotics. We have drug activity in Northwest Division. It's more prevalent in some areas than others. And the narcotics trade, it always drives crime, and it also drives lower level offenses such as thefts. We see people's cars getting broken into, things of that nature. It does have a connection, to how people fund their habit, who ultimately, buy from dealers. And then you do have gang issues. Northwest Division has a number of gangs, in groups that right now are very active. And, and they engage in anything from narcotics to robberies, to, you name it, but at the end of the day, there's not one thing that we can point to that tells us what the crime is. It's multifaceted.
Now, a lot of the times when I'm speaking to victims, and it could be a mom who has lost a child to gun violence, and they're aware of some of the gang activity, but they're a little taken aback because they're like, these gangs are still out here and the gang members are not being arrested. So you have to actually catch someone in the act to arrest them, even though the gang members in the northwest section of Philadelphia. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So I would like to just go back for a second. The gang members are being arrested.
Okay.
So for instance, we have record numbers last year and this year we're on pace to break records as far as the amount of guns that we get off the street. I think we're up from last year over 100% increase in the amount of crime guns that are taken off the streets of Northwest Philadelphia. Some of these guns, not all of them, are taken from, some of these groups or these gang members that we're referring to. We also, arrest some of these gang members for narcotics violations. Some of them get arrested for robbery. So there are arrests happening. I don't want you to think that, that they're not getting arrested, but, we're only a small part of the system. They have to go through a system, and, and the system that's in place, dictates, what happens to them, how they get released, and when they get released, and so on and so forth. So, from a police perspective, we're definitely doing our part, and our partners are also working hard, to see that those who are causing terror in the communities are being held accountable. But like I said, we're only a small part of the, I guess, the puzzle here.
Okay. Now, for those of you who do not know, Inspector Thomas went to King, and so did I. So he graduated a little bit after I did. So, Inspector, like back when I was coming up, we had like Brickyard. You know what I mean? You had like West Oak Lane and then the Cheltenham. So the gangs were neighborhood. I believe I heard something that has changed. They're now by blocks. Is that correct?
So it's a combination. So Brickyard is still around. You have Somerville, but there are some offshoots of these groups, and sometimes they are just as small as a block. So there is there's a mixture of larger organizations and then younger factions, that just may be a block, but nonetheless, but there's definitely some truth to that. I mean, unfortunately, the as crime goes through the generations, and you see these fractures of the older groups and then the younger groups that come out of that, and then those younger groups, they only know one block, and that's what they claim, so yeah, I mean, that's where we're at with it today. But yeah, but Brickyard is Brickyard. It's still around.
Okay. And I think things have actually changed. I think the whole game has changed. Back in the day, women and children were off limits, no matter what happened. And I spoke about this in another one of my shows with my older brother. If he had beef with somebody and he saw this guy and he was with his children or his lady, he wouldn't do anything. He's out, see you later. But it would all just be fist. No gun, nothing like that. But the game has changed so much. It's disheartening that we're losing so many African-American men to gun violence. It's a shame that children are being caught in a crossfire. And I've seen an increase in the last couple of years in females that were being murdered. Yeah. Did we always have that in the Northwest section of Philadelphia, or has that something that you've seen within the last couple of years as far as females?
So that appears to be a citywide trend. So you're right. I mean, there was a point in history where there were some things that were considered crossing the lines, even for those people who were in the streets, I guess you could say. And as recently as I believe maybe about a year and a half ago, you started to see a trend where every time you turned on the news, there was a woman being victimized, or there was a child being victimized. I mean, and that trend has continued. And, the only thing, I mean, I don't know what happened to, I guess, those street codes or street values that used to exist. I don't know if it's birthed out of desperation. I really can't pinpoint why we saw this increase, but the one thing that we do know is that it's happening. I was raised by a single mother in this community, so the importance of mothers, specifically Black mothers, in the lives of our youth and our children, and the fathers are important too, but we're talking about moms right now, but the importance of that, I mean, it can't be understated, and it's truly a sad trend. And and I wish I had more information as to why it's happening, but the only thing that we can do at this time is, react to it. Like when I talked about the domestic shootings that we see, most of the domestic shootings involve, the victim being a woman, and as we try to, offer as many services as we can to get the victim out of that circumstances. And I just got to take my hat off to you, because you do such an excellent job.
Thank you.
With our victims, you do such an excellent job interacting with our victims assistance officers, and you are truly an invaluable piece of this community, and I'm appreciative that I have an opportunity to work with you here at Northwest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Now, Inspector, I go to meetings, well, pre-COVID, and even now, the Zoom meetings, and I'm sure you go to a lot of meetings. I try to make the captain's meetings with all four police districts. There are people who are afraid to come forth to say if they've seen something. And again, this has changed over the years, because you know how you always had that neighbor and say, listen, I know what happened. I'm gonna tell you who did it and what they had on. It seems like we don't have those neighbors anymore because people are truly afraid to say what happened, because it seems like there's no regard for human life. I know these meetings are taking place, and what I've always said is that we're preaching to the choir. You and I attend meetings all the time. Pre-COVID, we were meeting face to face. Now we're having the Zoom meeting. It's you and I who are sitting in the meetings, and it's like preaching to the choir. We have community members that are afraid to say something if they saw something, because it seems like there's no regard for human life anymore. That neighbor who would say, I saw this person, this is what this person had on. It seems like we don't have those neighbors anymore, and I don't fault them, because we're living in scary times. How do we get more people to attend the captain's meetings, to attend the other meetings that the police districts have? How do we begin to draw people from the street, draw the gang members, draw these people that are wreaking havoc in our neighborhoods? How do we pull them in to join the captain's meetings and the other meetings that we're having in the police district, so we can make a change within our community?
Well, first and foremost, I think that, you know, this question here is this isn't just a police issue. And when I say that, you know, I'm talking from a standpoint of community policing. You know, every textbook that I've studied coming up to make this rank tells us that community policing is a co-production. So being that it's a co-production, that means that there's some responsibilities that the police need to take in order to open these lines of communication, provide the forums. But there's also some things that the community needs to undertake in order to ensure that the people that need to be in those rooms, those stakeholders, you know, those key individuals, you know, that have the ability to make change in these communities are present, you know, and collectively together, that's both of our responsibilities. You know, this question goes back to even when I was a captain in the 16th district. I would walk into my captain's town hall, and everybody in the meeting was like 55 and over. And, you know, and I'm looking around and I'm like, where are the young folks? You know, where are the young folks that can walk the streets of the community, because they may know some of the people who, you know, are causing some of the issues, you know, the young people that have the energy to go out and, you know, to advocate on behalf of our communities, you know. And it's a question that we've been fighting with for a while in the police department, because, you know, every district, you know, has a similar issue. You know, how do we get people, you know, into these rooms so we can begin to continue these conversations, you know? And so, you know, we have our Twitter, we have our social media, you know, we have our emails, you know, we've, you know, I will say in the last 5 years, you know, the department has made great strides as it pertains to communicating through social media avenues and platforms, you know, and we continue to do so. You know, I just think that as we come out of COVID, you know, we need to hit the streets together. You know, we need to get out there with the flyers, because I do understand that some of our older population, they don't have access to technology. They're not privy to it. They're not, you know, technology savvy. Right. You know, so some people need that flyer in their door. You know, some people need that knock on their door. And while we're fighting crime, we can't knock on everybody's door. You know, and that's where that co-production and partnership comes in from the community, you know, where we can, you know, carve out some time with our community relations officers and our victims assistance officers and walk these blocks together and talk to residents of the community together to raise awareness about our community meetings so they can get some of this information.
Which I think is very important. Inspector, what words of encouragement do you have for those senior victims and community members who are afraid to leave their home because of some of these random shootings that are taking place, just like that horrible, horrible incident that took place at Broad and Olney. What words of encouragement do you have for those seniors?
So first and foremost, as a man of faith, one of the things that I have to say is that, I truly believe in a higher power, but even with that being said, you need to know that we are, in spite of what you may hear sometimes about the police, we're working diligent. Like, I know dozens and dozens of police officers, detectives, captains, inspectors. You look at our commissioner, you look at our deputies, and you name it, even our civilians who are working diligently every day to make communities better. There are some failures that we have as the police, some are specific to this department and some are specific to us as being the police nationally. But what I can tell you is that there are a lot of people that are working to make things right. And I just want members of the Northwest, I want members of the Philadelphia community just to know that we come to work every day. We sit in our offices, we sit in our cars. A lot of times, we're so busy, we're eating lunch off of a computer that's in our vehicles, because we really do care about what happens, when we're talking about Northwest, what happens in the Northwest community. So we're working hard. You're not forgotten. And I just want to say that, if there's anything that anyone in the community needs, we have email addresses, we have telephone numbers, like my email address, anybody can reach out to me, and we can keep that line of communication open, but we're working, you're not forgotten. So that's the message that I would like to put out there.
And I will say, that is so true, and I can attest to that. All 4 of your captains in the Northwest section of Philadelphia are dynamic. I think they have a passion for what they do, which I think makes a big difference. I have a passion for what I do, so it's not a job for me. So I can literally do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The 4 victim assistance officers that you have in the Northwest section of Philadelphia, for the 5th, Officer Bailey; for the 14th, Officer Washington; for the 35th, Officer Raleigh; and for the 39th, Officer Bruins. All of them are dynamic. I am emailing them every day, all day. I also email your captains on the weekends and in the evening when my VAOs are not at work. And everybody replies to me no matter what time or no matter what hour. And for me to be able to advocate, and for me to be able to help victims of crime, witnesses of crime around the clock, you guys are doing a dynamic job. My hat off to you. I respect what you do, and I'm very, very, very proud to be a part of the community collaboration within the Northwest section of Philadelphia. And Inspector, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on. I'm truly appreciative of LaSalle TV. I appreciate you. Melany, you're awesome. I appreciate you as well. And, I just look forward, to doing, great work, especially as we come out of the COVID and we're able to be a little more social, I'm just looking forward to, all the great things to come. I've only been here since November, in this position, but I've been here before at other ranks. And I know what the Northwest community is capable of being at its best, because I've lived it for the first 30 years of my life. And I'm just looking forward to all the greatness that's going to come out of Northwest.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Inspector.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. It is my prayer and it is my hope that crime begins to cease in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. We have to do more as neighbors. We have to do more as community members. We have to take our streets back and make them safe for our children, our parents, and our grandparents. Peace and blessings. you.